So we're talking 9 years since the start of the war. We're talking a year and a half since the start of the full-scale invasion. Of course, the situation is very different in different parts of Ukraine, so please do pick what you want to talk about. But we all want to know how are people coping, but also how are organizations, how are structures, how resilient is society, and also what has changed in the past years, months, and maybe also what do you expect going forward. A lot of questions, just pick what you think you want to respond to. Go ahead, Daryna.
So answering the first question, how is civil society in Ukraine right now, I would say that it's strong, and you cannot believe what people can do despite the situation, not like thanks to it. And since 2014, the end of 2013 actually, since the Revolution of Dignity, it's been thanks to civil society organizations in Ukraine that we have reforms, we have, we normalized conversations about gender equality, about LGBTI people, about transparency between government and the people, anti-corruption efforts, etc., etc., etc. Like the list of the amount of organizations, of civil society organizations in Ukraine is just huge, and it's just been rising, obviously, because of since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. And for me, it's such a huge inspiration, actually, to be a part of this society, because if anyone, when it was like 2013, I think I was like in high school, and if someone told me that I would be here today and I would be doing what I'm doing, I would just be like, what is that? What is human rights? What is NGO? What is, civil society, etc. So despite everything, and obviously thanks to the support from global partners and inside Ukraine, the civil society is fighting, and I think that we'll have to keep fighting. There is no way back. And I think that also, if we compare civil society organizations, I don't know, like from Ukraine with other countries, etc., like you will see just the level of how fast and how huge, their steps are, like how huge they're walking towards some type of a goal, how fast they address the issues, connect with the government, demand, despite everything, basically. Because honestly, there has been no week since the end of 2013 in Ukraine where you didn't have any kind of a crisis. A small one, a personal one, a work-related, war-related, economic-related, blah, blah, blah. Like, there has been no day or no week. And it just, it shows that we have grown strong, and we have to do what we have to do.
Thanks, that was an amazing remark. I would also can add that if there will be some knowledge that we can export, that would be knowledge how to do revolution, how to demand, actually, from our government. Yeah, but first of all, thanks for having me. That's a big honor and pleasure. I'm presenting here as Nicolaas from Ukrainian Progressive Democrats, and I actually had a chance to take a quick walk in Hague, and I, of course, take a picture of famous court of justice, and I was thinking, hell, it's actually the only one place where Ukrainians really are waiting for Putin. Like, not in Donbass, not in Kiev, nor in Kharkiv. Here, we're waiting him here. He will be very welcome here. Anyway, yeah, thanks for organizing that, and thank you for your speech, because I'm also researching propaganda, but I'm very, very thankful for organizing this event, particularly today, and in light of other very cruel war in Palestine and Israel, which Russian propaganda try absolutely fabulously use against Ukraine to undermine our support, to bring new narratives and shift the attention from Ukraine. So I'm very thankful for you guys for you organizing that. Regarding civil society and what's going on in Ukraine, I would not be so optimistic as you, to be honest, because I've been to Ukraine recently, war is war, and war in Ukraine is everywhere, not just in the east part of Ukraine as it was in 2014. Like, you never know where the missiles will catch you, who will be the person who died tomorrow, like where the next terrorist attack is gonna happen tomorrow. Could it be like a maternity hospital or school or whatever? It's not just a military targets, and I don't need to explain that to you. The situation on the ground is really difficult. People expected definitely a harsh winter. They are buying generators. They are doing training how to survive during the nuclear strike. Our journalists are trained to learn how to deal with that. It's absolutely fabulous. It's like kind of new reality, a new normality. I would say that no one really expect to to live in. You know what? Yeah. So 8.5 million of Ukrainians are under risk of having PTSD, and it's also a very big problem that we need to talk about. And at this moment, I would say the war reached that point where everyone know at least one person who have died in the war, and it's very, very tragic. When I have been to Ukraine, I was with one of my best friends, and she learned about the death of her husband in front of me. Now we're talking like once a week with her. I'm trying to help, support her. And we were talking yesterday, and she shared a conversation with her 5-year-old kid. And Ustim asked her, will he go to the battlefield to defend Ukraine when he will be adult? And it's actually not the question that 5-year-old kids should ask anyone. I'm 27 and I actually don't know the answer to this question. Like, he was asking, oh, why Russians are so cruel to us? Why do we deserve that? Like, what's going on? Like, and I don't know that question. So it's kind of a very, very big picture what's happening in Ukraine right now. So propaganda is in Ukraine too. Definitely propaganda is trying to do tremendous efforts to undermine Ukraine's unity, West unity, first of all, because they don't want us to win, they want to have very long frozen conflict. So I'm sorry guys about that very sad perspective, but it is what it is.
Thank you. Thank you for showing both sides, and it's something that we also see with our partners. We see immense strength. And we see laughter despite everything, and we see that laughter is a coping mechanism. But we also see that people are so tired in all the organizations that have been working around the clock since the full-scale invasion, and actually since 9 years ago. And that's apart from all the personal tragedies that people are experiencing. Thank you also so much for acknowledging that there currently is another horrible war going on that is somehow connected, and where it's also vitally important that we show solidarity with people that are suffering. I wanted to ask about solidarity and about the needs. So why is solidarity, continued solidarity, so important? And what does civil society need right now? From us, but also in general, from each other, from apart from the obvious, Russia to fuck up. Sorry, we were not swearing. But yeah, apart from that, what does civil society need, and what can we all do?
Thank you for being honest. I would say the same. I even will be more rude, but it's okay. We are recording. Okay, so first of all, I will say that Netherlands were actually the first who have been starting with military support. And I think everyone in Ukraine understands how important exactly, from the all different way to support Ukraine, exactly military support. Because if we will not have enough military support, we will need more humanitarian support. We will have more refugees. We will have more our schools destroyed and blah blah blah. So thanks for that. First of all, presenting SD platform today, I would say that our partners, Foundation Max Mandela and Social Democrats Workers' Party, they have been supporting us for a long time, and like as we used to say, not just now when it's just become a trend to support Ukraine. You have been supporting us for a long time, and thank you for that. Like our progressive Ukrainian community enjoyed that support, and we were doing our training, we were building our community, we were building our society. So I don't want to sound like our society is not strong enough. Everything that you said is absolutely correct. I was talking from the perspective of ordinary people. Yeah. So like our 2 points does not exclude each other. Our society is still strong. Everyone is waiting for a victory. Everyone is contributing on their sides, but grief exists very huge. We understand what's going on in the Netherlands in terms of election, and we're very much in favor to support you guys. Whatever we can do as Ukrainians, please let us know. We will be extremely happy. Your victory is our victory, as well as our victory is your victory. We understand that everything is interconnected, and why is solidarity important? Because it's simply we're in Europe. Maybe people in Haag here or in the Netherlands don't really understand that, but it's just in the European continent, and it will not take so long to come here, to be honest. Sorry, I'm giving very sad messages tonight, which is not really what maybe you expect me to do. But solidarity is important, and we appreciate all support, informational support, but the last time recently we started to value more like concrete measures, because we notice that a lot of people just using Ukraine to get some political points, which we are not very in favor of this idea. Yes, so we inviting you to come to Ukraine. We know the leader have been in Ukraine recently in January. We can continue discussing our issues, we can deepen our cooperation. That would be fabulous. That's kind of what type of support we really need on the ground. Yeah, in terms of what actually we are doing right now, we are working on a framework of strengthening local self-government. So that's how actually our local communities in different regions can do self-governance, and it's actually a framework that also acknowledges the level of destroyment, like, because obviously different regions have different needs. Some areas, as in the eastern part of Ukraine, is completely destroyed. Other regions not. So we are working on that kind of pattern, which acknowledge that issues. We have a big networks of local deputies in Ukraine. We would be happy to work in that case. And what else? Like, you just simply need to believe in Ukrainian victory with us. That would be very important support. And approach victory with us too.
We believe in victory with you.
Thank you.
Daryna, what does solidarity mean to you? And does it arrive in Ukraine? Do people see the solidarity, or what else do they need?
I mean, when we talk about solidarity with Ukraine, I personally do not see any other way. Like, how can you not have solidarity with a country that's been just, minding our own business, doing reforms, trying to develop, trying to become a better place for people to live, and then one day, just like some guy, not a guy, it's actually guys, many people who just decide that let's start a war because we just don't want this country to be, to be developed. We don't want the people to be happy, etc. yeah, to exist. We don't want them to exist, basically. Maybe just as a part of our world, the part of Russia. So there is, like, you cannot not be, I think, in solidarity with Ukraine. People totally see the support, and I can feel like my personal experience would be that every time if I meet someone abroad and I say that I'm from Ukraine, like, you totally get a reaction from a person, and most likely this reaction is very, it's empathetic, right? And there is no question for Ukrainians who are still in Ukraine whether or not they are supported by the global community. But there is obviously always space for more support. And I don't mean that, you have to sell like your last things that you have and then go and donate to some of the Ukrainian foundations or something. But we're talking about, again, the weapons, or we're talking about the political pressure, or we're talking about supporting sanctions, or we're talking about even, like saying that your utilities got much more expensive now because of Ukraine, but because of Russia. So just even the way you phrase these words, it's important. I would also say that support and solidarity can come in many ways, and most of them are actually pretty simple. Like, you don't have to stand up and do something, but you just first of all listen. Like, if you have Ukrainians around you, or we all have, I think most of us have internet at least, and you have lots of Ukrainians speaking English, recording, creating content in English, etc. Just listen. When a person from Ukraine comes and says, something that might be not specifically the thing that you thought, that might be a bit different maybe from what you thought, listen to this person, because this is actually a person who has been living in Ukraine and who knows better. Like, no matter how many years of education you have, or if you followed the journalists who have been covering Russia for many years. Like, even if you know Russia, you obviously do not know Ukraine. And so in this situation, you have to listen to people. And I think that most of Ukrainians are very much happy right now to share and to have conversations, etc. And also just, share the space. If we're talking about civil society organizations, just if you have some access to, the government, or just a space where you could invite people, or you have audience, etc. It's really great to have events like this. And to share space with Ukrainian CSOs or representatives of any kind of initiatives, etc. If you know about the solidarity actions, if your cities, towns, come, talk to people maybe if you want. And I think that the hardest part regarding solidarity would be, get used to it, but not in the way that you don't notice this anymore, but in the way that you have to live with it. Like, unfortunately, there is no way any of us can escape the news about what's happening in Ukraine, and can escape basically the consequences of the war. So either you are with us helping any way you can. If you're not comfortable, maybe like some of you are not comfortable to be donating to military, but there are so many ways. There are so many foundations donating for animal rights.
I know an organization.
You can donate to animal rights, or help veterans, for example, to then have some rehabilitation that they can deserve, or if you have any resource to provide maybe psychological support, or your organization has these resources, do it, and maybe think about groups of people who have not been covered yet, like, let's say teachers, for example. Like, a lot of initiatives are targeting kids, but what about people who teach them and who spend huge amount of hours with them? So just to think about what you can do and get used to it, because unfortunately we're not getting out of it tomorrow or even today, and I wish we could do it. But this shouldn't be just a noise in the background, unfortunately. And I know that many people are struggling with, anxiety when they watch news, etc. Well, unfortunately, we have to do something about it and to not see it in the news. And I would just say that if you, have some strong emotions inside you, then maybe it's better to convert them into some actions.
Yes.
And because even with anxiety, when you have some reasons or some fears, when you conquer those fears, it helps. So let's all conquer the biggest fear.
Very true, very true. Thank you so much. Actually, we have to move on, but maybe we have some space later on. But the program is going really fast. But I thank you so much, both of you. We might have some, indeed, after the second panel, we might come back to the both of you for another response. I have to move on, though, to Nicolaas, because you have prepared a step back, a more analytical step. I think there is somebody looking at you to rush it a little bit, because we also have to move on. So do keep an eye on our great
You get an extra minute for watching exactly the right way to dress tonight.
A blue, yeah. Okay, so well, after having heard also the personal stories from the two other panel members, I'm a bit ashamed to say that my story for today starts with my last holiday. So last summer, my partner and I went on vacation to Romania, and we wanted to visit a Transylvanian mountain village, which was not accessible by public transport. So we asked a guide, "Can you bring us there?" And our guide introduced himself as a former Romanian army colonel. And on the way to the mountains, he gave us a lecture about Romanian history. And mind you, I'm a historian. I didn't tell him that I was an historian because I wanted to hear what he wanted to bring to people from the West coming in. And he literally started well, we had a lecture, 1 hour to the mountains, with the following words. "We Romanians, we know who the Russians are. They come to take your land, they kill and rape and plunder. And we were not surprised by Russian invasion of Ukraine. Western Europeans, they had no idea, and they were so naive." And the rest of the lecture, well, it was an hour, as I said, but it can be summarized as we Romanians, we are a peace-loving people by nature, and we are only interested in defending the homeland in which we have lived ever since antiquity. And invaders come and pass by, the Slavs, the Hungarians, the Turks, the Germans, the Russians. And in all this, it's a miracle that we exist as a sort of bulwark of civilization in this sea of barbarism. Well, you can ask many questions about this narrative, but that's not my point. My point is that for us, Western Europeans, these notions raised by our guide are very astounding, and that's not why I'm raising it, because I'm raising it because this story actually is not special. If you go to basically any country east of Germany, west of Russia, you will hear similar structured historical narratives. Of course, our guide maybe gave us an extreme version, but you can hear these same stories. And of course, you have to account for there being different variants, even within countries, and not everyone agrees, but most narratives will share the same structural elements. They are a mode of self-perception in which the nation is transformed into a freedom-loving society suppressed by its neighbors. And each nation in the region has its own set of neighbors, but Russia most often figured prominently amongst them. And, well, what most of these nations share is a history of living in the shadow of Russia, or Russia's power projection, and which is what I've been asked to reflect on today. And of course, there are rules to every exception. Anti-Russian feelings are less strong in some countries, but also you will find in those countries the same historical narrative structure. So what does it mean to live in the shadow of Russia? In 1984, the recently deceased Czech playwright and emigre dissident Milan Kundera published a very long article, The Tragedy of Central Europe, in which he tried to answer this question by claiming that there is a Central Europe, which is essentially the easternmost part of Western Europe, which is an uncertain zone of small nations between Russia and Germany, whose very existence may be put into question at any moment. It's not for nothing that Kundera quotes the opening lines of the Polish national anthem, Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, Poland has not yet perished. Kundera claims that Central Europe represents a diverse area of cultural diversity, which he contrasts with Russia, which is uniform, standardizing, and centralizing, and determined to transform every nation in its empire into a Russian, quote unquote, or Soviet, quote unquote, people. Of course, Kundera's text should be seen from the perspective of its time. It was published only a year after Ronald Reagan referred to the Soviet Union as the evil empire and presented the Cold War as a battle between good and evil. There was still no sight of Mikhail Gorbachev and his policies of glasnost and perestroika. Nevertheless, seen from our contemporaneous perspective, Kundera's text, he could well have quoted the original opening line of Ukraine's national anthem, Ще не вмерла Україна. Ukraine has not yet perished. Interestingly, Kundera is not keen on defining what he means by Central Europe, but is very keen on defining what it is not, Russia and Russia. Indeed, he portrays Central Europe as a common tradition or a fate. Because of this, it's important to define the region not by political borders, but by what he says, quote, great common situations that resemble peoples, reassemble peoples, regroup them in ever new ways along the ever-changing boundaries that mark a realm inhabited by the same memories and conflicts. Or, translated to our time, because Russia's western border shifted east in 1991, so did Central Europe's border. Yet there is much more to be said about Kundera's definition and how he positions it versus Russia. And Kundera isn't blind to the fact that there are other Russias than the uniform and standardizing and centralizing Russia. He might be a bit short on that. But it's striking that Kundera's essay, more than 30 years old, reads as a version of what our Romanian guide told us this summer. Of course, Kundera's essay has much more intellectual rigor, is more geared towards a more cosmopolitan audience, but the structural overlap is striking. Both present a self-perception as a victim of Russian aggression and proclaim their own innocence. And this is one of the shadows of Russia's one of the legacies of Russia's shadow. Russia has often created or encouraged the formation of counter-projects to forms of identity that proclaimed cultural and political links to Western Europe. Pan-Slavism was in part, not fully, but in part, supported by Russia to prevent Slavic nations from finding a future in Europe. Likewise, Moldovan national identity is in part a Russian and Soviet construction to dissuade the people there, a strategic territory, to find their future in a more European-centered Romania. To counter Polish claims on territories in present-day Ukraine, in the 19th century it became implicit policy to deny the existence of Ukraine as a nation and a language in the second half of the 19th century. Well, of course it's not up to Russia to decide where these nations and people go. That's something for the Poles, the Ukrainians, the Moldovans, etc. I'm not going to name them all. Decide what they want. Yet it is troubling that the answer which comes from the region often takes the form of a narrative which stresses victimhood and some way or another seeks to exclude others. And this in the last years has increasingly become a common parlance through what I call a narrative of post-communist anti-totalitarianism, and I'm still looking for a better word. So please help me if you can. This narrative presents communism as an experience which is imposed and which is alien to the own nation and now needs to be removed from society. And my screen is doing things I don't want it to do. And this ideology, communism, is then equated to Russia and it's foreign and it's illegitimate. And for sure, don't get me wrong, based on the ideology of Mao, which was artificially imposed on the region, has also turned into a tool for political mobilization. It forms the backbone on which the Polish Law and Justice Party sought to upend Polish constitutional order, which was formed by the compromise between the Polish Communist Party and anti-communist opposition in 1989. And these policies, this is a thing which happens elsewhere. Viktor Orban uses the same idea to promote his policies. And also, Ukrainian politicians have used this same idea. And the resulting policies are, in a sense, problematic because they end up in imposing things on civil society where you would want civil society to figure that out instead of imposing it on civil society. Of course, as a historian, my perspective is key. I am opposed to think that history is both the cause and solutions to problems. But what seems to underlie all these policies is that the idea that there is one correct way to write history. And sometimes this leads to recourse to legal solutions. And I think this is something we need to talk about and think about. Free discourse on history is to democracy what the rule of law and rule of law what canaries are to coal miners. It's important to guard our free discussion about history. And there is a role for civil society, and luckily in Central, it doesn't work, in Central Europe or Central and Eastern Europe, especially outside of Russia, there are countless of examples of organizations trying to do that, and that's something we need to support. But there is also something for us in there. We in the West, we need to learn about this history, we need to understand it better so that we can help these societies to deal with that. And then, of course, the deal is that you can help us understand what Russia and communism means for you.
We know a lot about that.